Wedding dresses are an essential part of every wedding, from elopements to big traditional 300-person weddings. Everyone needs a special outfit to wear. And today we have a special guest to chat everything bridal gowns. We are actually fangirling over here because we have one of our favorite designers, Hayley Paige. Hayley launched her first self-titled collection with JLM in July 2011 after studying design at Cornell and working under a few other designers. Then came a bridesmaid's line, red carpet apparel, a TV show, a jewelry brand, and along with all that, global recognition as the talented designer that she is. So Hayley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me in that lovely intro.
Of course, we're so excited. We love everything you do. So we cannot wait to learn more and share all of this with our listeners. So first, I want to know a little bit about your story. How did you get started? How did you get into designing and everything?
This is one of my most asked questions, and I feel like I still kind of tell it differently every time. But, it's just funny because I always was attracted to design, and my grandmother taught me to sew and bake at a young age. So I was exposed to that creative side really early on. But then through my academics, I was always gravitating towards science and math because it felt very formulaic and, you take the test and you pass the test and then you become a doctor. Yep. And so I had a really hard time justifying an understanding of viability in being a designer. Sure. So I always saw it as a passion and not so much as an actual career path for me. And it wasn't until I got to college where I really started to put a lot of the pieces together in terms of understanding merchandising and sales and distribution and manufacturing and all that kind of stuff. And I was lucky because at Cornell, they had a major called fiber science and apparel design. So it overlapped a lot of my curriculum with science and medicine.
Interesting.
And it was kind of the perfect little transition for me in getting the conviction I needed to become a designer. I if you would have asked me at any point in my life, I would have always said I want to be a wedding dress designer, but I just felt silly saying it.
Yeah.
And I love telling that story because I think a lot of people have those doubts or have those feelings okay, saying I want to be an actress is okay, I want to be Batman, and I guess I want to give them more confidence in saying it's okay to have those doubts. Just always let your passion remain and let's see where it goes. And maybe it will overtake those doubts someday.
I love it. So when you went to college, did you know that did you have a different major and then switch?
I had an art and science major. So it was basically a combination of science and then art, but they didn't have a pre-med major. So I assumed the fiber science major. And meanwhile, I was taking organic chemistry and all these huge curriculum courses for pre-med that really had nothing to do with fashion or anything. But I think for me, the way it worked in my brain, it helped me really realize, okay, all of these things are applicable to design. And it's not just, okay, I'm a creative. It's that you can be really well-rounded in other facets and still pursue something that's artistic for a career path. And then I think my junior year, I decided no to taking the MCATs and just went full-fledged all the way design. And I had a great professor, a team of professors there, but it was really wonderful to have a mentor that gave me confidence to do design. And that's something that's really important to me. I need positive validation. If somebody is being condescending towards me or trying to tell me I'm losing focus or it's not helpful and it's never been. So it's for me, that was so important. And I try to be encouraging to other people too. I think positive reinforcement is major.
I love that. So what is your positive reinforcement or what inspires you today to continue to design?
Honestly, I think the community itself of the bridal industry and brides all around the world, that's where my focus always comes back to is that it's not just about dresses. It's about making the connection and being accessible in a way that inspires you to create for people. And particularly right now, I'm so lucky that I have someone in my life that is extremely supportive of my career and has always helped champion and make me feel valued. And so that's one thing right now that I'm just really grateful for, especially in quarantine, because,
Yes.
everybody's in a different mindset, but it's been really positive for me. It's been a positive experience. So I want to share that with people with the hope that it'll be optimistic for them as well.
I love that. Especially in quarantine, you definitely get to know people even better when you're stuck together, right?
And any pet peeves you had before are just completely elevated.
Yes. Yes. I love it. So tell us a little bit about your design process. I'm always so intrigued to know about this. Like, how does it work for you?
Yeah, it's the most fun part of my job, I would say, is the development and design process, because there's really not a standard formula. Every dress is so different and tells a different story. So I think I'm a bit different than other designers because I don't always treat each season, okay, this is the collection and it all has to go together. As much as I like diving into each individual style and like really expressing different personalities, and making sure I have my time with her, with that dress, and I love personifying it. So it depends. If I have a dress where I'm thinking, okay, this is all about the novelty fabric, I'll typically start with the fabric, and we make all of our textiles from scratch. So everything's hand drawn and then converted to CAD into a repetitive pattern. We do strike offs where we test embroidery techniques or layering of sequins or whatever embellishment we're going to be using on the novelty. And sometimes it can take up to 3 years to get a perfect fabric.
Wow.
So I just love that because I think Talk
about a labor of love.
It is. And it's so funny because I don't think a lot of people know that. I think they assume we go to like a fabric shop and then pick a fabric. And, that happens for staple fabrics like tulle. You get a good quality tulle that you love and it's kind of a running quality across the industry. But when it comes to like the Markle fabric, or the embellishment on Elke, like all of that was completely baked from scratch. And so I really have such an emotional attachment to every single dress. And it's more about the individual style than it is about the collections itself.
That's incredible. So each collection, do you aim to have like a certain number of dresses, or is it just kind of depend on your design process?
Yeah, it's funny because I think the industry has really changed very quickly in the last couple years. The way we show our gowns and how we get them in the hands of stores and then brides is a little bit antiquated in my personal opinion right now, because the problem is when we release a collection and I pop it up on my Instagram, girls want that dress right away and it's not going to be in stores for another 6 months. So I feel like we're really behind ready to wear and high fashion where you can see now, buy now. And it's mainly because a lot of our dresses are made to order and we don't know what dresses will make the collection until after bridal market. So the goal and the hope is that we can start getting further ahead. And when we show something, it can immediately be available. And it's just interesting because with a bridal market in October versus April, the October is always a bigger market, but we still have a great selling opportunity in April, except for this last one.
Yes.
But it's you do try to aim for a nice presentation and something that feels wholehearted and like complete, but every season is different. So sometimes we have 15, 17 dresses, and then other times we try to whittle it down and do a tighter edit and go for 8 to 10. And it's funny because when you really think about it, we're mainly a wholesale business. So stores are only picking up certain styles. They're not always picking up top of collection, like every single piece. Yeah. And so you almost want to make sure you're not putting out too many great dresses, because then some will fall by the wayside and not make the collection. Right. So it's kind of one of those things. I think it's just opportunity though. It's an opportunity to always be serving and get better at your craft. So whether it's on the production side or the design side, good lessons to learn.
For sure. Especially if you get so like connected to your dresses and then to not have some of them make the collect. Yeah.
You nailed it on the head, because some of my favorite dresses of all time did not make the collection.
I would be so sad.
It's so sad. And I swear I post those ones on Instagram and they get the most like, oh my gosh, what dress is that? Like, and I'm like, it's not available. So I'll just keep bringing them back somehow.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on it a little bit. Obviously, with COVID-19 going on, has that affected your, design process, or kind of how you're selling? How do you think that's going to affect the bridal industry overall?
It's going to be major. So far, I think it's been more emotional than anything because so
Yeah.
many brides have had to postpone their wedding dates and businesses and shops have been closed. And, that's no fun when you can't go in and shop for your wedding dress. It's one of the greatest experiences a girl can have. And I think everybody's just working hard to get back on the wheel and make up for lost time, but right now I've personally not been as concerned about selling dresses as I want to be a resource to brides, because I think it's important to reassure them and make them feel supported during this time.
Yeah.
You look forward to your wedding, most girls, their whole lives, and then they set this magical date that they're so excited about, and then to have to change it, and then right now not even know, like, will guests be coming? Are they going to be wearing masks? Like,
I know.
it's just completely changed the landscape, and it you can't say anything other than it's a huge bummer, because
It is.
we can always make the most of it. But I also just feel like I don't want anyone to feel like they have to compromise. I want them to have their magical moment. So.
I know. My heart breaks with every couple we talk to. And now too, we're starting to see some couples that are even having to postpone a second time. So it's crazy. So do you think that like elopements and micro weddings and things like that will become more popular? And if so, how do you think that's going to change what people are wearing?
That's a great question. I would hope that even if it starts to encourage more smaller moments of celebration, that there's a follow-up or a round two where they can kind of do something similar to what they originally planned, just at a later date. So I've been getting a lot of questions from brides, should I do a small intimate ceremony? Should we just open some champagne and I'll hop in my dress? And I always say, celebrate every tiny moment as a couple and for your marriage. And if that's something you want to do, go for it. There are no rules. And, this is a time to be grateful for what you do have as opposed to what we don't have. And I love that idea of even a big moon and a baby moon or a mini moon. Some people are kind of separating their honeymoons. And I think that's wonderful because it's more vacation and more trips together.
Yeah.
So I don't see why you can't have more than one ceremony and even rock your dress twice, because twice the pictures, twice the content, why not?
Why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I mean, great opportunity to have a second dress, right?
Totally. More is more. I'm so on that train.
It's like my biggest wedding regret is not having a second dress, I feel like.
Oh, I feel you. Nothing haunts you like the dress you didn't get.
I know, exactly. So what about trends? So later 2020 into 2021, what are your predictions as far as, trends and what we're going to be seeing as far as wedding dresses?
My favorite thing about the industry right now is that it's so eclectic, and it seems that more and more brides are willing to be really expressive and express their personality through their dress. And so it makes for just a really creative landscape, and you can be really specific with designs now. And I feel like I'm proud of the industry itself, because I feel if you just look a few years back, it's once a dress is popular, it seems like everybody is doing that. Everyone's rocking strapless satin, and that's the way it goes. And then it was all over sheath lace, and you could kind of really pinpoint those trends. And right now I feel like it's a little bit harder to, really say, okay, across the board, this is what's happening. And I even remember 2 years ago when Meghan Markle and Prince Harry got married, everybody was assuming it was going to create this huge wave of simplicity and really nothing dresses, no embellishment. And it didn't. There were still so many brides out there that wanted those fabulous all over sleeve princess moments and sparkle. And, it's just I love that, because it's to each his own. And I like when you don't feel dictated by trends. But that being said, I think one of my favorite things to design into right now is interchangeability. So a dress that has an overskirt or a detachable strap, so that you can kind of rock your dress more ways than one. And then I'm a big fan of sleeves right now. So anything that's dramatic and, has a little bit of coverage on the sleeve is fun.
I love that. I love the skirt. That's my favorite thing as well, because it gives you two looks in one pretty much, which
Yeah.
is
And
great.
like, I think one of the hardest decisions that brides face is, okay, do I go for the fitted mermaid sexy look,
Hmm.
or do I rock a big ball gown? And I'm just like, you deserve both.
Yes.
So let me help you with that. Like, we'll do both.
I can help you do that. What about accessories? Are we going to be seeing veils, or what's that going to look like
I
later this year
always
and
love a
into next
good
year?
veil moment, and I love a contemporary accessory mixed in, like a cool cowboy hat, or like a leather jacket, or faux leather jacket, or something that's just like unexpected and gives you more of a rocker vibe. So I love that right now, and you're seeing a lot of it styled into the wedding, and then they have other pictures where it's not incorporated, so it's not like you have to commit to it all night long or something.
Yes.
And so I love that there's an integration and a hybridization of bridal accessories and high fashion accessories. I love that there's kind of a melding of the two. So I can see a lot more accents and like over the top moments happening with hair pieces, head pieces, really, really intricate braids and things that are just unique and different. I think girls are so brave now and wanting to just express their style. So, anything goes now.
It really does. And it's really wonderful because I love how everything looks so different. So we know that you're engaged. Can you tell us what you're working on for yourself? Will you expect multiple dress changes from you?
Oh my gosh, I am so excited. It's funny because I don't forget so much as I'm like, it's not really at the forefront of my brain, which is so weird for, being a bridal designer.
Yes.
And I think just because of the time that we're in right now, and there's such a crisis and there's people that are really in need of reassurance and help, I've been redirecting my attention to the appropriate places. But when I think about it, I was on an IGTV live or an IG live last night with a friend of mine who's a wedding planner. And he was like asking me all these questions about my wedding and Conrad and like my dresses. And it was so fun because I kind of was thinking on the spot and kind of going with it. And I feel like I will definitely be rocking more than one dress and just celebrating every little moment and vignette throughout the wedding. And I just like Conrad's so fashionable as well. So like I can see him being super creative with his look too, and just like us running amok with it all.
Oh my gosh.
And luckily we didn't set a date yet or anything like that, but we did have an idea of when we wanted to get married. And I think it's going to be pushed a lot further down because I feel so bad because so many weddings are getting pushed. And now there's going to be like this huge influx of weddings every
Yes.
weekend. And, it's not that I don't think we can all get married kind of around the same time, but I think I just, I don't want to feel rushed.
Yeah.
And I'd rather kind of adjust to the situation now, and then we can circle back on that. I like a long engagement so we can keep celebrating along the way.
Exactly. I feel like there's gonna be like a mad rush on all these or there already has started like on these 2021 dates, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and
When
I've
you think
had
about
like
it.
the crazy thing too is people that were in the beginning of quarantine are almost a little bit luckier than the people that are from like now until October.
Yeah.
Because if the people from now until October are going to have to start pushing their wedding, it's going to be even further for them because all those earlier dates are taken by the first influx of people having to postpone. So it's, I feel so much for them. And I feel like most people are handling it really well considering,
They
but
are.
it's a bummer. And we
I
still have a
think
lot to
bummer's
look
the
forward to
perfect
though.
word. Yes. Bummer's the perfect word to
Bummer
describe it. It's
sauce.
just, oh man.
True.
So, okay, for brides who do want to wear multiple dresses, what is your advice to them on like choosing those gowns? And then how do they know when to change?
Really great question. Because I think one of the reasons girls don't go for more than one look is because they don't want to have that moment where they have to change and get taken away from the party and everything like
Yep.
that. But I actually think it's kind of unique to see the changing moment as an opportunity to take it in for a second, and go away with your new, man or wife and have a moment together where you can put on your next look and come out and make another entrance in another dress. So I always say a good time to change is between the ceremony and the reception. But a lot of girls want to wear their first big ceremony dress during that first dance. Mm-hmm. So my advice is to just make sure that you plan it in. And if for some reason you feel like, oh, I don't want to do it right now, go easy on yourself and give yourself a little bit of time, dress a little later in the evening, if that makes sense. But I think it's nice to not put too much pressure on yourself no matter what. And then with deciding, I think that, again, there really aren't any rules to it because it all comes down to personal style. But I like when the dresses don't go together. I like when they're totally different because you get to express a different moment and a different attitude with each dress. So I always say don't feel pressured to have them coordinate by any means.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so fun. And I feel like you can have a lot of fun with accessories as well, right? Tying into that different look kind of feel.
Yeah, and wearing a belt during one moment, taking it off later if you're, getting down on the dance floor or something. And yeah, it's you really can do it your way. And brides, they don't have to be just one thing. I don't like when people say you need to have an idea and just stick with it and be in that box. And it's no, you can have a very fabulous couture fashion forward moment and then slip into something that's more simple and a little, sparkle dress or something. I'm such a fan of saying you do you, boo. And it's so much work being someone else. So you might as well be yourself.
I love it. So for the brides listening that are currently shopping, what are your top 3 tips for them in choosing their look?
First tip is to try something that you never thought you would. I think there's a tendency to be really married to an idea before you're walking into that appointment. And the truth is that a lot of imagery out there is adjusted or tempered with. And so when you see the dress in person, the proportions might be a little bit different and they might not fall exactly how you imagined in your head. So it's nice to make it a little more experimental and be willing to try something. 2 is that a lot of dresses don't have hanger appeal. And I say that because
it's true.
These dresses come to life when they're on you. And some of them are constructed very particularly, and they don't look great on the hanger, but once you put it on, that illusion net just melts into your skin and it just looks so beautiful. So don't be deterred by that. And the third is I was saying this even before COVID-19, but I always say it's important to kind of limit your entourage because you will have so many moments with your girlfriends to do your bachelorette party stuff, to bridal shower or whatever else other moments you want to have. But when you have a lot of people and a lot of opinions in the room, it can sometimes feel like you need to please people and it's harder to hear your own voice. So I always say to limit the amount of people that come to your appointment because you want to feel like it's a vulnerable moment and you can get really intimate with it. And you don't want to feel like you're persuaded when you're really into another dress,
Yeah, I know. And that's hard when there's so many opinions in the same room.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think now with COVID, I swear stores are going to start limiting to 1 or 2 guests, like your mom and your best friend or something like that, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world because there's FaceTime, there's Zoom. You can quickly bring people in and say, hey, look at this, so
this is the winner.
Yeah.
Just approve it, please. What about people who are shopping virtually? I know that that's happening right now. Do you have any tips for them, especially the hanger appeal? It's true. It's hard to see it when it's not on your body.
It's really tricky. I like the way that some stores are doing a virtual consultation first and showing some of the dresses on mannequins and, doing this, this virtual time together and answering a lot of the questions up front. So can that neckline be raised? Can I adjust where the waistline sits? Does it come in other colors? Ask those questions that are really important. And then I love when the stores actually ship the dresses to the house. And that totally changes the business model for a lot of bricks and mortar stores because they're limited on how many samples they take in.
Right.
And so if this is some way of the future, we're going to have to figure out a way to get more samples out there for multiple girls to try, and that we're keeping the samples all clean and really preserving them between each. But if Rent the Runway can do it, I'm sure we can find a way
Why
to
not?
pivot and let's make it fun. And I think it's also, there's something kind of cool about turning your home or your apartment into a fun little try on. I think that the major missing piece is that the sales consultant is so key in your experience, and they really are trained to answer all your questions and give you that time. So I think that's a really key element. And my hope is that we'll be going back into stores without problem. So
me too.
Otherwise we'll pivot if we need to, but that's just my personal preference. I love having a moment in a beautiful store. So
I know, with the perfect lighting and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we sign off, please let our listeners know where they can shop your amazing collections and where they can find you, of course, on social media.
Yes, they can shop a lot of the collections on HayleyPaige.com. We do all of our lookbooks up there, and under House of Hayley Paige, we have our accessories, veils, athleisure collection, flower girls, all that kind of stuff. And then just for sprinklings of my creative process and personal life, and of course gowns, they can go to my Instagram, which is @MissHayleyPaige.
Thank you so much, Hayley, for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. So glad you're doing well. Stay safe and sparkly.